Welcome back to Switch to Linux. Well, another version of Elementary OS has dropped, and I wanted to go ahead and have a look at it. If you follow my channel, I've taken this controversial stance on Elementary OS that I don't think it smells as wonderful as Tim Cook's smelly turds. However, I have also given it enough real grace to really honestly look at it and have an assessment. And this version here, there are a lot of really good things, but I still think that for the basic user, Elementary OS is so far from the mark to make it not really a distribution I can really recommend. And we'll get into why that is in a moment before you send me all your hate comments as to why I am so hateful towards the distribution. Before we do that, let's go have a look at their release notes. This is called Odin. And yes, to quote Hulk, puny god. There's a lot of really good improvements. They are coming a long way, but there's one thing that they need to change for me to look at and say, okay, this is something we can probably recommend. We're not going to flip through everything. This is a lengthy post. You can read it yourself. It's just on the blog page for Elementary. They talk about the three focuses: empowering you to be in control and to express yourself. Well, in the past, they've said, no, you can't express yourself. You have to do exactly what we want. But now you actually do have the option to do light theme, dark themes, and a accent color. So yes, now you can indeed express yourself. Bingo. In control. This mostly is the apps. The apps, everything is now Flatpak and Sandbox. That is a positive and a negative, and we will get into that in a bit. But they have everything sandboxes in isolation by default, and that is absolutely the way a Flatpak-based distro should go. So they completely get the A+ on that. Having new features, I disagree that they're continuing to innovate with new features because they still feel so far behind with everything else. Like Mail Client only supports a few protocols and not much more than that. They at least have some online accounts through only CalDAV and IMAP and nothing else. This is not exactly innovative with new features unless you think that you're the only thing that exists, because it lags behind a lot of other distributions. Making Elementary OS easier to get and more inclusive. I'm not sure what they mean by the inclusive portion, easier to get. Okay, what they're getting at is they are introduced a new installer, which the Pop! OS installer is based on. Of course, a lot of things in Pop! OS are borrowed from the Elementary team, and the installer is much better. As far as easier to get and download, no, it's still confusing. It still looks like you have to pay money for it. And I absolutely would encourage you, if you are using it on your regular basis, please support the developers and give them something if you are downloading. They are doing a good job for what they have. I just tend to disagree with some of their directives, so I'm not going to be paying them for it, but I will definitely review it. But if you are using the distribution, you should be paying those developers to make it better and providing some feedback into the community. So this will be my outsiders express into the community. So here they kind of go into it, the theming, and we're going to go through this really quickly because I'm going to just show you this in reality. Sandboxes, this is the new applications thing, very much like an Apple. Of course, they're following their line of basically duplicating Apple and everything that Apple does. Multi-touch gestures for people using trackpads, laptops, and things. This is going to be your biggest selling point to use Elementary OS, is because they now have a lot of features and swipes and things that are just absolutely amazingly good. I hate laptops and trackpads. I don't use these features. To me, this is, I don't even care. Okay, but it is a significant thing for people that are on laptops and use trackpads. So when I use a laptop, I put a mouse in because trackpads suck. Hashtag trackpads suck. Notifications are greatly improved, basically bringing notification menu in line with every other distribution. We have a do not disturb mode, which has been there, I think, since the last version. Everything does look nicer and pops out more. We have a new task tool. Now, some of the things like the task tool, the calendars, the mail apps, these will integrate into the online account systems now. That is a new feature. So if you're using online accounts, you can actually tie those types of items into this, although it's still fairly limited. And they do have a Linux vendor firmware service. So if you would like your vendor to automatically install their malware, like happened with Dell not too long ago, then they have the option to have Star Labs, Dell, Lenovo, HP, Intel, Logitech, Wacom, etc. All these types of things to do firmware updates. You can do that, and that's kind of tongue in cheek. There's times that running these firmware updates are actually good. Again, this is something else Pop! OS does, so some overlap with that. App updates, they do have the new dark theme, of course, so their apps have been brought into the dark theme updates, and having a few other features. Here is they're showing us different colors, which are different calendars based on the online events. You can choose which camera is being used now by the camera app. How amazing is that? And then, again, the biggest change on the applications is that Flatpaks are how things are distributed. Also, they did change the way the file manager works so that it is single click through folders, but double click to open files. I guess that, to me, that sounds like it should take some getting used to. But we'll leave it at that. Still can't put anything up into the system tray, but they did do a lot of changes. The volume indicator, for example, shows you all of the different sources. This is a huge improvement. So definitely there are a lot of things in this that are really good and worth looking at. So that's that. So let's go ahead and have a look first at the new installer. So here we have the option to try or install, check for defects, and boot from the first hard disk. So hopefully we'll bypass the disk check. We don't need to do that. Oh, never mind. It's doing the disk check anyway. This may take some time. It won't take more than a few minutes here. All right, so here we are. We have landed on the new installer. We start by just selecting our language, our location, and keyboard layout. Very simple. Now, from here, we can try demo mode, which just goes into the live key. We can do something custom, create, resize, manage partitions manually, those types of things. The default easiest option is erase disk and install. So click on this. You choose what your disk is. You have a warning here. You're going to erase and install. And then now you have the option of choose a password for the full disk encryption or don't encrypt the disk. If I go on beyond here, then we're going to actually make changes to the disk, and I don't want to do that. Everything from here, it's just click that button, move on, and it installs, and when you're done, you reboot it. Everything on this installer is now an OEM install, which is absolutely the best way to do it. So we're not going to go on here. Let's go ahead and have a look at what it looks like when you first install it. All right, so what we're doing now is this is a elementary OS that was installed but never booted. So this is what the OEM setup is going to look like. We're going to have a look at a few things in here because the biggest complaint we're going to be able to see from this before you make any adjustments and tweaks. So here we have booted in. It is booting our first time, and you can see once again we select the language. So even if you're installing this for somebody else, then the language gets selected not just on the installer, but also the language is going to get selected on by the user themselves. So they do let us choose whatever password we want, even if it's short and not super secure, because my super secure password that's definitely not 123 is absolutely what I want to use for this test system. It will let us use it. It just gives us the warning, but everything is good. Hit the finish setup button, and then it's going to boot elementary the first time. I need to enter my super secret password and then log on in. And then it's going to grant us with a just a little tour. So on our tour, you can skip all here if you know what you're doing, or you can walk through the individual tour. And so here we have a basics guide, community support, how to get involved. Here's your look. You can choose the light theme or the dark theme. You can choose your accent colors. This one here, I believe, is going to actually choose your coloration of your accent based on the primary color in your wallpaper. So that's what you have there. We're going to go with the dark and the yellowish because, hey, this is Switch to Linux. We can do that. So here, the night light, you can turn this on, and this will give you a schedule where you can do, softer lighting at night. I think this is a bunch of nonsense. In fact, scientific articles also confirm this is nonsense. I think this is stupid. But for those compelled by it or want it, you can do that. You can click on this. You can set it to go based on your IP address, sunlight, sunset, sunrise, based upon your location, based on your IP address, or you can set specific times or do other things like that. You can delete older files, trash files, and then here is the online account option. And again, the online account option is very limited consider what there is. We have IMAP and we have CalDAV, so that's what we have. Next option, we have some apps. We're going to look at the App Center in a bit. And then here you have ready to go. So we'll go ahead and get started. Now, again, just some of the basic changes over here. We have our sound settings. All of your audio inputs will appear down there if we had more of them there. So you can see that that setting is good. Notification box. We have a do not disturb mode. It does look a lot nicer. And as we said, the apps that are built in, specifically curated for Pop! OS, they all look really good. They look like they're built in for the system. And overall, out of the box, it looks pretty good, albeit very limited. There's no word processors. There's no ISO burning tools. There's a lot of things that feel as though they are missing. Now, when you come into here, the greatest new thing that we have here is inside of your applications, we have a permissions tab. This will give us all of the applications that are installed and what they have access to. So you can really do a good job of isolating the applications based upon your own preferences and whatnot. Everything else in here is fairly similar to how it's been in the past. We're not going to spend the time looking at what has changed in each one of the major applications. What I want to focus on here is why I think that this distribution is extraordinarily hyped. So the biggest challenge that they have is it feels like it's incomplete, even if you go into the App Center and would like to install something like, I don't know, maybe a word processor. We have code. That's it. Having a look inside of here, you can click on your, no, I don't want mixer. I just want to go accessories. So under accessories, there are a number of different things. We have Badger, remind yourself not to sit and stare at the screen so long. We have, roll the dice. We have a palette picker. Not a whole ton of stuff there. Under audio, we have music. Under communication, we have Iridium and the mail client. Under development, we have code, feedback, the hero that Gotham needs right now. Okay. Well, that's a very useful thing to have instead of something like an Office tools. Education, we have a timer. Finance, nothing. Games, nothing. Graphics, Harvey's back. We have photos, we have palette, nothing in here to actually edit photos. We have internet, we have torrent, Iridium, mail, GNOME, web. Math, engineering, science, calculator, and advanced calculator. Media production, nothing. Office, Badger, calendar, events, Odin, tasks, and typewriter. And the typewriter is a minimal writer with autosave, basically text pad. System, universal access, video, writing and language. That is it. That is all we have. Every instance of installing an application that is not on this system will give you the warning sign. But it begs the question, how do you install anything? Well, you actually, and somebody actually asked this question just today, and it wasn't me. They said, the App Center is very empty inside of Elementary OS 6. They're like, well, it's very easy. You head on over to FlatHub and install something, and that will automatically install the FlatHub repository. And so That's really your solution. There is no way to go into the App Center and say, or in the settings and say, let's add FlatHub. Let's manage the repositories. Let's add some other repository. I have exactly one option, and that is to, well, I mean, I guess maybe two. I can go into the terminal if you know how to add FlatHub to the Flatpak repository in the terminal. You can do that for sure. Not exactly a user-friendly option. Or you can head on over to FlatHub. You can install any random Flatpak, and the process of installing a Flatpak is going to automatically add FlatHub to the repository inside of the App Center. So you pick any random app, you click the install button, and then this is going to download the installer here. Just give it a second to download the installer. You can see it's trying. The internet's a little slow right now because we're streaming and battling a thunderstorm for bandwidth right now. And so what it's going to do is it's going to give us the download option. So there's our option. We click on this guy here, and then it tells us install this untrusted app. Everything, whether some weird thing you've never heard of to long-running apps like VLC and GIMP and LibreOffice, will all tell you this exact thing. It's going to fetch details, and then this is going to bring us to our second major problem with a Flatpak-only system. I hunted and hunted and hunted for the smallest Flatpak that I could find, and the smallest one I could find was 850 megabytes. I am on a very limited connection. You can see this one here. This download size may be up to 864 megabytes. Every single Flatpak you're going to want to install, and you're going to want to install a lot because they don't have anything here, you're going to be spending gigabytes and gigabytes and gigabytes of data to install things that on a basic repository is going to be very simple. Now, updates will not be reviewed. Other apps and distributors may appear. Download size may be large. It has not been reviewed. You have to understand this and install. Now, I'm on a very metered connection. I know you guys over in like EU and stuff that have unlimited internet for $20 are going to absolutely laugh at my 150 gigabytes for $150. But that's what I'm stuck with. I cannot go into my system and spend 30 gigabytes to install, the few applications that I need to make this thing work. But once we do this, it's just going to automatically add FlatHub. Now, it's not automatically there. You're going to have to shut down the system and restart it. So let's go ahead and we're going to shut this system down, and I'm going to go ahead and restart the system on my original test build where I actually did install something, because I am not downloading another 800 megabyte thing right now just to show you that it installs FlatHub. You're going to have to take my word for it. Let's go ahead and have a look at this one here. This is the one I've already worked with. So we will actually have all of the other repository for FlatHub in here. And this is going to show you what I'm talking about. Silence for editing purposes. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get logged on in here to Elementary. And once we land on the desktop, we can now open up the App Center. And now that we have installed, and the smallest thing that I found was core stats, and we will also notice that core stats, unless something has changed in the last 2 hours, core stats does not honor my default theme. So yay, we have a nice bright white theme despite I've selected dark theming. Sure, I could go with this tweak tool if it exists. No elementary tweaks. People were telling me in the comments to install the elementary tweaks. Well, the problem is it's so difficult to get the elementary tweaks because every time somebody figures it out, well then, now we can do that. So now if I go into Office, you can see that the ones up top are the trusted, and then these are the non-curated. Be like, okay, non-curated, that's just fine. Let's look at GNU Cache. There's a long-running thing. We click on GNU Cache, click on your free, and now we get our warning sign again. It's not curated by Elementary, has not been reviewed for security, privacy, or system integration. It may not receive bug fixes. It may access or change system or personal files without permission. This is absolute 100% garbage because these apps have a longer running track record than Elementary itself. To sit back and provide a warning on a Flatpak that's supposed to be isolated is absolute garbage. This is why I cannot recommend Elementary. We install this brand new system. Oh, it's so accessible, so inclusive that we can install this application or this new operating system. Wow, it looks beautiful. You just can't do jack with it. Nothing. You cannot go into Elementary OS and install a word processing application without going through a warning about this is untrusted. This might damage your system. Ooh, this is a scary application. This is so overhyped. It is inconceivable. Elementary is off to a good start. But they need to start respecting the open source community that has given them a platform by stopping with these nonsense warnings about applications with a long-running platform and trust. This is nonsense. This is why I cannot recommend Elementary. It looks beautiful out of the box with the shiny new thing that you can't do anything with because it doesn't provide word processing. It doesn't provide a way to edit audio. It doesn't provide a way to edit a video. It does not provide a way to edit images. You have nothing except their core little curated apps. Sure, you can install extra things. Going through the scary warnings. Now, if you're a seasoned Linux guy, you know, that's a bunch of nonsense. But now you start looking at this. If you're new Linux, you go, oh, I don't know. I can't install that. Your old hat, you're like, what are you doing? You're alienating both bases. On top of this, your App Center, despite being Flatpak based, has no way to adjust the repositories. No way to open up some setting and say, these are the Flatpak repositories you've allowed. Add these, not add these. How about, hey, I trust things from FlatHub. I may not trust things for some other weird repository I found somewhere on the internet, but if I can say, okay, I trust FlatHub, stop giving me warnings on FlatHub applications when you're making a big deal about everything is Flatpak for security and isolation purposes. This feels to me so incomplete, and it feels to me so weird and thrown out there. I can't tell what Elementary is doing. Am I wrong in this? Now, don't get me wrong. It's not like absolute horrible, burn it with fire. But it feels like it's an incomplete system. I get what they're trying to do, but I think that they failed at the mark miserably. They put spit and polish in their curated applications that you can't be productive with. Everything else, their solution is, well, it's up to the app developers to support our theme changes. Yeah, I'm going to support theme changes for a distribution that half the people using a small operating system don't even like. That's how insane this is. But they're trying to be Apple. And we're trying to be the Apple of Linux, therefore. That's what my thought is. Let me know, am I completely wrong about this? Or is this overhyped? Or is this just absolutely amazing and I'm just too deaf, dumb, and blind to see? Let me know your thoughts on all that in the comments down below. Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.